Hello, and welcome to another episode of Open Up the Workforce, where we speak with executives advancing inclusion, diversity, and equity for the future of work. I'm Ava Sadeghi, co-founder and CEO of Symba, and your host today. I'm incredibly excited. Today we have Elizabeth Newman, the Chief Administration Officer and CHRO at CBIZ. Elizabeth has incredible experience working across different sectors from nonprofit, public, and private. Welcome, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of #Open Up the Workforce. I am joined today by Elizabeth Newman, Chief Administration Officer and Chief HR Officer at CBIZ. Elizabeth joined CBIZ in 2019. Prior to that, Elizabeth served as the President and CEO of the Centers for Families and Children and Circle Health Services, a large regional nonprofit organization specializing in integrated healthcare, workforce development, and education services. Elizabeth, you've had an amazing career up until this point. Would you please tell us, our listeners, more about yourself and your career journey?
Great. Oh, and thank you so much for having me. I'm just really excited to be part of this series. So my career journey has not been in a straight line. I started my career in government in the public sector and then joined professional services from the public sector, then spent time in the nonprofit sector and then bounced back to private. So from my perspective, that experience has really made me a much more well-rounded leader. I look at problems differently because I've had those experiences. So I'm a big fan of, it doesn't always have to be the traditional career path to continue to advance.
We couldn't agree more at Symba, and that's why we're all about workforce development programs where you can try out new things and get a taste of what you like. Actually, prior to Symba, I also worked in the public sector, and so it was a big career shift. And so I'd love to double down on that a little, Elizabeth, because of the fact that, you've been a leader in so many variety of industries. What are some of the different barriers that you've seen and the main ones that are consistent across the different industries that candidates face entering the workforce?
Certainly, I think a barrier is we just get stuck when it comes to, at times, when we think about talent acquisition and recruitment and attracting different types of talent, we can forget how quickly the work and these positions are evolving, and really thinking about the skill sets and the experiences that's going to make people successful in these roles. And this is everything from how we present a position to potential applicants and kind of how we talk about it and the words that we use, to how we onboard someone and bring them into the organization and really try to position them to be successful, to making sure that, all of our team members understand what the career path is, how they can advance, and how we align learning and development to support them on that journey. So I think sometimes we really need to focus on the different steps of that process and how we can make sure that we're really focused on, again, what is the work today? What is the work going to look like tomorrow? What are the skills that we know are going to make somebody successful? And then how do we tap into that talent in understanding that they may come from not exactly the traditional career path that maybe we've seen prior applicants or prior candidates come from, but their different experiences, their perspective can bring incredible value to the organization and ultimately to our clients.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And that's one of the reasons we were so excited to talk to you today, because that notion that we know that you embody of, talent comes from anywhere. And
Right.
Something that we believe in at Symba, so much so that we believe that these programs give talent that hasn't been given a shot the opportunity to shine. And we noticed some of the great work that you do as a part of the Ripple Match 2023 Campus Forward Awards. And would love to learn, what are you doing maybe more on a tactical level, thinking about making investments in D&I and how you're investing in your internships and early career initiatives to make some of this a reality?
Absolutely. And I just want to acknowledge our campus recruitment team. Really, all of the accolades should flow to them for that award. They do an incredible job of not only being present and connected to our student applicants and candidates, but really creating those relationships, cultivating those relationships with institutions and schools and universities. So they really get to know us and we really get to understand what's happening on that campus and how we connect to it. So I want to give them just, again, a huge thank you for the great work that we do. So at CBIZ, we have invested so much in our internship program, and we have started to drive that internship program deeper into the student experience so we can try to reach students early in their school career, when they're making decisions about their career path, when they're thinking about what the options are that are open to them. And I think what's unique about CBIZ, especially compared to other professional services companies, is that we offer such wide breadth of services that they can get exposure to a lot of different things. We're not kind of forcing them to choose a lane too soon. In fact, we're trying to expose them so that they understand there's lots of options here. And maybe you get into this and realize financial services isn't where you want to be, but what about data analytics? What about some of our other advisory and consultative services? What about government health? I mean, there's just a lot of options for them. So that internship program, we've really tried to design it from start to finish. And we keep in touch with our interns. We want to keep them connected to CBIZ. So from the moment we make that initial first contact until they're making a career decision, we're developing a long-term relationship with the idea that this is a future leader of CBIZ. We want to bring them in. We want to make sure that they feel like they've created community. They have a network within CBIZ, and they have endless opportunities. So our internship program is at the center of that.
I'm like, yes, yes, yes. This is so powerful. And we believe at Symba we need more CHROs like you that recognize the power of these and create really designed, thoughtful programs. What advice might you give to other C-level executives to really acknowledge and buy into these programs like you have?
I mean, first, I think I would remind all of our leaders, these students have options, right? I mean, they are in demand. We are a people business. We need this talent. It's what fuels our growth. It's what creates the relationships with our clients. So I really feel strongly that we are competing for this talent. And so we need to be really intentional about the experience that they have and making sure that not only their day-to-day experience, that they're able to work on diverse group of clients. They're able to have different experiences. They're able to test their skills, but also be coached and be supportive. But they also need to see the team side of our business. They need to be able to feel our culture, to be able to, have colleagues that they can have fun with, that they can kind of start to visualize themselves as being part of the CBIZ team. So we really think about all the different aspects of that internship experience, and we try to be really intentional that every step of the way, we're just strengthening our connection with that student.
Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. It's so incredibly powerful for organizations to do that. And one aspect that we've seen across organizations that these programs really do feed into the diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. So how do you incorporate these aspects of DE&I in your recruitment and in your university strategies?
Well, so we've made some pretty significant investments over the last several years as our DE&I strategy has taken shape and really started to accelerate. So there's a couple of things that we do. I mean, first, it's supporting our recruiters, making sure that they have the training, the support, the skills, the information, the materials, so they can be effective in communicating our commitment to DE&I, our strategy when it comes to DE&I, and all the work that we're doing to create a more inclusive culture at CBIZ. And so that includes everything from talking about things like our employee resource groups to talking about our ongoing awareness and education opportunities that are kind of embedded into our culture, talking about different ways that they can make connections when they're here and really feel that sense of belonging. So big part of that is with recruitment, but we've also, again, going back to our internship program, we've tried to embed these elements within our internship program. So interns really get a sense of this is what it would feel like to be part of this team and to have this experience. When it comes to our relationships with colleges and universities, we're constantly looking for ways to expand our reach, but we want to create meaningful relationships with those organizations. Same thing with professional associations where we can tap into more experienced talent. So we take that work very seriously. A lot of times we tap into our greatest ambassadors, which are our team members. We try to work through their connections and how we can put them out in front because they are tremendous advocates for the work that we do. And I think, again, our best ambassadors for really explaining to potential talent the opportunities at CBIZ and why they stay.
Most definitely. And while we were doing some research, I know you mentioned employee resource groups. We saw that you have a young professionals employee resource group. So would you tell us a little bit more about that and the associated mentorship pilot program that you have?
Absolutely. So our employee resource group has been around for almost 5 years. It started based on the leadership of a group of early career professionals in one of our offices who really kind of identified a gap in that they were trying to expand their network out of the teams they work with on a day-to-day basis and be able to connect with others that were trying to navigate kind of those early career steps and kind of figure out how they could support each other, how they could learn from each other, how they could share information and resources. So it really came out of their leadership and their vision for how this could potentially work. And it's now a national employee resource group at CBIZ. We lean on our employee resource groups, identify different strategic initiatives that really contribute to CBIZ overall, and look at those ERGs as being opportunities for people to problem solve and also to lead. So the mentorship opportunity that is now a formal structured program at CBIZ really came out from that group of young professionals saying, we need a better way to tap into mentors at the company. And we need a way that we're doing more engagement, and we need support on how to be a good mentee and how do we find these mentors and be able to have meaningful relationships with them. So we're about to launch another phase of this program this year. We're really excited about it. We've gotten overwhelmingly positive reviews from people who have participated in the past, and it is really changing the culture around the importance of mentorship and how those mentors can play a pivotal role in your career journey here at CBIZ. And I think it's something that we're going to see only continue to expand. So, but again, it's really based on the leadership of this group of young professionals that saw a need and, kind of stepped up to the challenge to say, this is something we feel strongly that needs to be solved, and we want to help solve it.
That's incredibly inspiring. I think it's a testament to the work you're doing too, because you're creating an environment where people can step up and say, we identify a problem and we want to solve it. So Absolutely. I think that's really, really speaks to your culture and the work you're doing as a CHRO there. So really, really want to say kudos to you for that. And I hope others can learn to continue to do that. Because ERGs are really, really powerful if they are given a voice and the support needed. We also noticed that you have a Women's Advantage ERG. So we'd love to know, how do you support women in the workforce at CBIZ?
Yeah, so our CBIZ Women's Advantage, CWA, has been around for over 15 years. It's our longest standing employee resource group, and it is really just evolved over time and is a force within CBIZ. But it supports the women across the company in a variety of different ways. And first of all, really trying to make sure that there is tailored professional development, leadership development, and networking opportunities for women at all levels. It creates opportunities for women to have leadership positions, whether they're driving an initiative within CWA or whether they're a CWA representative on different projects and teams across the company. Over the last several years, we also launched the Women Transforming Business Award. This is an award that we give out on an annual basis where we are able to recognize a woman leader that is doing incredible things for her company and has just really created awareness around essentially impact that women are having in a variety of different industries and a variety of different sizes of companies, and really shines a spotlight on why women have made so much progress, but we need to continue to support them and make sure that they feel like they have, again, incredible opportunities. So just there's so much happening with CWA. And I would also tell you that when I talk to women across the company, and this is true for all of our ERGs, when we talk about retention and why people choose to stay, especially when they're, highly valued, incredibly accomplished professionals, a lot of them tie it back to the experiences they have in places like CWA. Like that's the glue that keeps them here, because not only do they feel fulfilled in the professional work that they're doing, but they're part of this incredible community and they get a lot of job satisfaction out of that. So it's a big part of our retention strategy, and we see we see the dividends of that.
I'm so happy to hear about that award. And I think like you said, it creates so much awareness and really across the entire organization. And I know it sounds like this has not been a recent strategy. This is something ingrained in your culture for a long time.
Yes.
I think that Gen Z, we've noticed they care about community. And so this is kind of my next question, transitioning into understanding how you're investing in growth and development of Gen Z talent. How are you thinking about the next generation of the workforce?
So that's a great question, because I think we're all thinking, and I kind of beyond CBIZ, we're all thinking about, how do we best support a very intergenerational workplace? And that's a conversation that we're constantly having. When you look at the demographics of our current population, you can see the shift with Gen Z and the impact they're having, and kind of how we're seeing our population shift from a workforce planning standpoint. So obviously none of these generations are a monolith, and we try not to get into sort of like what we've heard in terms of like how the generation acts or how they approach the work. I think the biggest thing for us is, what does engagement look like, and how do we make sure that those lines of communication and feedback are open, so we can understand from this group of people that are entering our workforce what's important to them, how do we make the work meaningful, how do they make sure that they feel supported. A lot of that is, I will tell you, is adapting our communication style. We know that this generation certainly communicates differently and uses different tools. They're incredibly tech savvy, they're tech natives. So thinking about their experience as part of our workforce, as part of the company, and how do we continue to adapt. But a lot of it is just getting their feedback and making sure that they feel heard and that we take it seriously, and they're seeing changes and they're seeing adaptation based on what they've identified as being a priority and what they've identified as being important. So I think we're all, constantly trying to do that refinement and adjustment. It's an exciting time, but it's certainly something that we're having a very active conversation about.
These are really powerful points, and I appreciate you for taking this perspective of, we can't lump Gen Z into one group, because we can't really do that about any generation. But
right.
The points that you share about they have different tooling, they have, an inclination to different activities. I think it's really important. And as someone who really oversees all of HR and strategy and talent planning, I'd love to get a perspective on how are you measuring success, thinking through metrics when you're capturing that feedback. How do you do it? What are ways that you kind of pivot and make changes based off of it?
Sure. I mean, certainly we have, the quantifiable metrics around our rates of retention, our rates of acceptance when we present offers, our tenure, how we're seeing people advance to the workforce. So we're certainly looking at all of that quantifiable information. We also do an annual employee engagement survey where we ask some more qualitative questions and really try to dig into issues around culture, communication, engagement. Again, that sense of belonging. Do they see a path here for themselves? Do they have friends at work? Do they feel like they are part of a community? And those things are a little bit harder to measure. And certainly while we try to monitor them, and is a little bit more gray than some of the more quantifiable measures. So some of that is we really try to kind of put all of that information together. Again, that feedback loop of hearing from our different generations on what's working and what's not, and where we need to continue to improve. I would tell you, I feel like it's like an ongoing conversation we're having with our workforce. And ultimately, we'll see it play out in those quantifiable results. But it's, how do we show up every day to make this a great place to work and a place where people want to stay and build their careers? And that's something that my team thinks about constantly. And I know it's something that our leaders across CBIZ is also top of mind for them too.
Yes, I think one thing I'll say is it's never been a more dynamic time to be in HR. I mean, there's just always things changing. You have to stay on top of everything.
I agree. And I will tell you, and I think, post-COVID, it's only accelerated some of that change of you've got different generations in the workforce. You've got different expectations about, how work is supposed to be structured, where we work, how technology plays a role. So it's an exciting time, not without challenge.
Absolutely. And one thing we're really excited about is the role of HR being seen as even more strategic and a more powerful voice as a part of the C-suite. Love to get your comments on that.
I mean, again, thinking about COVID and how I feel like there was a real shift, because our focus on taking care of our people and helping our people navigate through a period of really extreme uncertainty, I think only put more emphasis on Before that, I think when people talked about employee engagement, it was more of, okay, well, how do you have fun and how do you stay connected? But that really changed the game. So I think I can tell you for professional services, we have always been a people business. So the strategies around how do we respond to and support an intergenerational workforce? How do we do workforce planning? How do we make sure that our people understand the career paths that they have and how to move along them? How do we continue to adapt our learning and development to meet the different learning styles that we're encountering within our workforce? I mean, these are all questions that we're grappling with. And it really goes back to your point. I mean, we just need to be much more strategic, and the day-to-day blocking and tackling is important, but we have to have that vision of where we're going and what our team needs to look like and what that future is, so we can plan and execute accordingly.
Thank you for that answer. I think that's always a balance between the two. And to wrap up our conversation today, this is a really important question for us at Symba, and our whole mission, as we shared, is #open up the workforce. And for us at Symba, that means creating a future of work that's equitable for access to jobs and wealth creation. So we'd love to ask you, Elizabeth, what do you believe are the next steps talent leaders need to take in order to open up the workforce?
So I think a couple of things. So first, as we continue to evolve our model in terms of our true talent capacity, we're thinking differently about the different opportunities to be able to work in a firm like ours. So for example, I think several years ago, we would have talked about a traditional career path where, just for an example, you work a set amount of hours every week, you work overtime during busy seasons, you come to the office every day, and you kind of have a career path that's dictated by that. I think that has really shifted. And so in terms of opening up the workforce, we've got to recognize that people have different expectations. They may want a different schedule. They may want to work remotely. They may want to be able to flex up and down based on different things that are happening in their life, or things that they want to accomplish outside of work. And how are we adapting that if we can get quality talent that doesn't necessarily fit that traditional mold? The onus is really on us to figure out a model and a system and a structure to support that. And we really see that as the future. So for us, we're thinking a lot about how do we create a workplace where people can connect in different ways, again, with all those different factors, but it isn't limiting. They still feel like they have opportunity. They still feel like that they can advance and see themselves here. And ultimately, I think that will translate into an exceptional experience for our clients, because we're going to have highly engaged, dedicated, skilled people that feel like they have some semblance of control about how they work and what that feels like for them. So it's something we're really excited about. We don't have all the answers. There's still a lot to learn. But when you think about opening up the workforce, I think it's really being open to, it's just not going to look the way it used to. And in some ways, there can be huge opportunity in that.
What a powerful note to wrap today's episode on. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really, really appreciate your time, and I appreciate your fresh perspective and being open to innovating, especially within HR that can be challenging to innovate and embrace the change. You really are doing great work, and I'm excited for our audience to be able to listen and learn from you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for your time today. This was a lot of fun.